Hi. Is it nice there? It's cold here. I'm in Michigan.
No, it's not. I mean, it's cold for me. I feel like I have. Do you know what an Udi is? It's like a huge sweatshirt blanket thing, kind of like what a Snuggie was, but a little more intense. I've been wearing that.
You put it like over your head, like on you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been wearing that with like socks and drinking warm tea, but it's like 70 degrees. It's really not cold, but I feel freezing. And I keep, my dog is like anxious for some reason. I keep being like, she's cold. She's cold. And everyone's like, she's not cold. It's not winter here.
Like, she's fine.
Yeah. So LA is still warm. But I just got back from Europe a couple days ago and it was very cold, which was nice.
Well, I see that. And how far behind do you get? So, because I always tell everybody, people believe the story you're telling them. So if you are still in Europe on your social media, you are still in Europe on your social media, but you've been home for days creating content. How far ahead with content creation do you try to get?
Oh my, well, I would love to get ahead all the time. I'm always like, this is the year that I backlog content, and it truly has never happened. So with me, you're really getting current every day. Like the video I posted today, I filmed today. So it's all done really in the moment. And then, usually in the middle of the year, the end of the year for most content creators is just so busy with like brand stuff and working with companies. So it gets pretty intense. But usually in the middle of the year, I will film once a week and try to crank out 6 videos in a day and then do that. But when I was in Europe, I was posting as I was in Europe.
That's good though. It's just the easiest way to do it. But does that frustrate you? Because your wife, Jordan, are you and Jordan officially married? Technically?
We are getting married next year, but we're engaged. But we've been engaged for so long.
Like she's just your wife.
Yes.
So her niche is like food and travel, right? Yeah. So does it bother you that she literally can just post what she's living and she's done? Meanwhile, you're like, I've got a character. I've got to write it. Where are we going to film it? Is this a collab? Like your process as a comedian is so much deeper than her process. Does it kind of piss you off sometimes?
Well, I think they're hard in different ways. Because I think for me, I'm able to work and then be done. Like I'm able to I have days where I film with the person who films my videos and I film for 8 hours like a job. And then I have days of the week where I write for 8 hours a day, like a 9 to 5 job. But then when I go out to dinner that night with my friends, I'm like fully like, I can leave my phone in my car. Like I don't touch it. Versus I know Jordan is a constant, they're doing less like filming 8 hours a day, but they're always filming something. So if we go out, like every meal we went out to in Europe, they're having to also be present, but also kind of filming and also making sure the lighting is good. And so they're kind of always on the clock, which I don't envy.
Yeah, for sure. So for people that don't know, Kendahl Landreth do you refer to yourself as a comedian or a funny content creator? Like, how do you explain to people?
Yeah, comedian, actor, content creator, but yeah.
All the things. I saw you during COVID, as did a lot of people on TikTok. And is that an imitation of your mother?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Is she really like that? I swear we saw her once for real. Didn't we in like one video?
Yeah, she did something on my YouTube channel where we did like 50 questions and it was like my character. And then I also asked her those questions. So there is some content of her on the internet, but it's really not very much like her. Because she's not, she doesn't talk that way. She's not Midwestern. A lot of people like will come up to me and be like, I'm also from the Midwest. And I'm like, I'm not from the Midwest. But I kind of just invented this accent. But I do think she's very passionate. And she, like, especially the early videos, the characters changed so much. Like if you go back to the first videos, her voice is pretty normal. And she's just like this really liberal woman who uses Facebook Marketplace and loves gay people. And, as TikTok grew and as my audience grew, it changed a lot. So now the character is not much like her, but definitely used to be a little bit more.
Do you remember which video was the first one that like popped off for you and went viral and you were like, oh crap?
I do. It was really, it was my first video. I never had posted anything.
God bless you. Beautiful.
I know. I really.
We're all friends that were telling you, Kendahl, you got to be on TikTok where you're like, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. It was a very funny time to join because it was mostly like dancers. Like it really was not, comedians were not really on TikTok yet. There's a couple of people. I was not the first, but it was not a common place to do comedy videos. And I went to school for comedy and acting, and I was in the comedy community in New York, and no one was doing TikTok. That was not, people were posting on Instagram a little bit, but we were still kind of like performing on stage. We weren't thinking about having to like move it all pre-COVID to internet. So my Jordan, actually, we had just started dating like maybe that week, and they were like, you should get on TikTok. Like, I'm on TikTok and I had a video go viral and you should try it. And I was like, okay. And I kind of just wanted to impress them. Like which is so weird because posting a TikTok is not a way to impress someone ever. It really could have looked very cringy on my part. But luckily for me, it like immediately blew up. Like the second I posted it and I just immediately, I think it just, TikTok was at a good time where you could blow up in that way. And my life like changed. I mean, I was a janitor at a gym at the time. And within a month, I was I was doing it TikTok for a living. So it really moved pretty quickly.
Did it freak you out to literally make that shift, make the pivot as an actress and a creator to go from, let's say on stage at an improv show, there's only so many people, right? Yeah. So you go from like this many people to like this many people. Yeah. Did it freak you out? How did you handle that shift of like, oh my God, this is really happening? And then also the expectation of the characters from you. Does that sort of hinder your creativity?
Yeah, and which is something I'm forever working on. Like even, my New Year's resolutions this year are filled with ways that I can not care as much and just create stuff and not be so scared. So it's definitely a continuous battle. I think in the beginning, I was not very nervous. I think I was so excited because it's what I'd wanted for so long. And like I'd been doing improv and characters for forever. And so I felt like I had a real arsenal of characters and stuff to work from. So in the beginning, it was just exciting because I was like, oh my God, I have all this stuff. And I'm used to performing in a bar for 3 people that are my improv team that don't want to be there. And now I get to perform for all these people. But I think when the scary part started to happen, maybe 6 months to a year in, when I was like, I have to do this every day. Like when I think back to like my favorite character actors, like, Kristen Wiig, it's like they're known for having such a range. But when we really look at it, it's like, okay, 10 to 15 characters is what they do. And on TikTok and Instagram, you post every day, you're expected to really come up with maybe an infinite amount of characters. And so I started to be like, I don't know if I have the brain I don't know if anyone has the brain to do this, who can just come up with infinite stuff for the rest of their lives. And so I think that has taken me time to be able to, it's been a really good practice for me as a comedian, even in the traditional side, because I've learned to just throw stuff out there. Not everything has to be perfect. I used to like perform characters live and I would work on the same character for 2 months and rewrite it. And I think now I'm able to just be comfortable trying stuff out and not worrying what everyone thinks, but it's a process. And I go through phases. Some weeks I feel like I'm great. And then some weeks I'm like, oh, I can't think of another thing. I don't know.
Do you keep props with you just in case all of a sudden one of the characters, like you're somewhere and you're like, oh God, this character would be perfect in this scenario? Or do you keep it strict? Like I write it, I shoot it, and beyond that, they're out of my head.
I'm pretty strict about I write and I do them. I think I really try to like, which once again, I'm not perfect at, but I really like try to have a good work-life balance. So I really try to like, just because I'm going somewhere fun doesn't mean I need to like make that content for other people. But then I also things like I plan all the time, like, let's go to Disneyland. I'm planning to go, we'll have fun, but I'm going to film content. So we have certain content days, but I also am lucky that I definitely have filmed characters just off the cuff, which is always a treat.
Well, because they live in your head. So
yeah, totally.
You're somewhere doing something and it's like, God, Mom would be so funny if ...
Yes. But I think I've been lucky that I have really made my characters low budget in their costuming. I early on was like, I think in the beginning I was like, just couldn't afford wigs or props. But I was like, I don't need wigs or props. Like, I'm going to do like physical character, like what I trained in. Like, I don't need it. And like now it's, that was just me not having the time or money, but now it's kind of nice. I can just throw a pair of glasses on and be a different person.
Well, then throw somebody the camera and be like, okay, shoot this. We're just going to go with it. Let's see what happens. So time wise, you really do block out time. You do consider it like your job. Cause that's the toughest thing for me as like, oh, I want to be a content creator, but then like there's a whole day in front of me. And mine is more like vlogging and like what's actually happening in my life. And like time feels like it just goes by like that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, it's like 8 o'clock at night and I'm just going to edit now. Like what the hell just happened? How do you actually manage the time and make sure you're getting in what you need to get in?
It is tough. I mean, I really think it's like a journey, like being self-employed is like my first time in my life. The last 4 years, it's a nightmare. And it sounds perfect. And then you're like, I can't do this. And so, I mean, I like to think I've figured out a lot of tactics to push through it now. But I mean, every year I have a good cry. Like every single year, there's like a day where I'm crying, being like, I can't
just
do it.
Once a year?
We'll save for the sake of this podcast, just one.
Okay. I was like, I cry every other week where I'm just like, why am I doing this?
Yes. I mean, I truly like my poor fiance. We went out to like our 4-year anniversary dinner the other week and they were like, how are you? Like, how was your year? And I was like, tears, immediate tears. And be like, I don't think good. I don't know. I can't get my work life together. So it's definitely a challenge, but I do think I do a pretty good job, but it's taken some time. But I really have to just treat myself like an employee. Like every night before bed, I write out a schedule down to the hour of what I'm going to do. And I ended at 5. Like I'm really good about being like, it's done. I mean, and of course things pop up where I randomly will have to do something after, but for the most part, I'm done at 5. And I also, it helps me to schedule with other people. I have a person who like films my videos. So if I know someone is meeting me to film my videos, that help me too, which is like a luxury I get, I guess. But it is definitely tough. But also like I've learned to like restart anew. I think it's easy to like go a couple weeks and not do a perfect job and then be like, well, I should just give up everything because I screwed up. And I think I have built that muscle of being like, we can always start again tomorrow. Like no one else is paying attention to you. You're paying attention to yourself. And it's easy to compare. You're seeing every person online. So it feels like this accumulation of a person that is like posting every day and doing all this stuff. But people aren't perceiving you in that way. So I try to just let myself start anew whenever I can.
Did you not look at the numbers for each character? Because I mean, obviously people love Mom, so they're going to want to see her over and over again, but then you introduce a new character and it's like, is that scary to sort of like launch the next character knowing that you have people that are like, no, we want more Mom? It's like, I can't just do one character for the rest of my life. I love you guys, but that's not going to happen. Do you just not look at those numbers and trust in your gut? Like, I'm a creator and I want to do it for myself regardless of the audience. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think it used to be a lot scarier because for the first year of doing the internet, I only did my mom character for the most part. And it was like every day. I posted a mom video every day. And by the end, it was getting really bleak what I was just posts I was doing. It was like Mom on National Donut Day. Like I was really out of ideas. And I was like, I have to do a character. But it did feel like so much pressure because I'd never done a new one. And I did a couple characters that just didn't do really well. And then I did a Toddlers and Tiaras video that then blew up. And that was like the second thing I ever did that blew up. And that got me into doing like reality TV impersonations. And I think it's always, I've learned over time too, just the most surprising stuff to me. I feel like I have started to learn, sometimes I'll know when something's going to go viral, but I feel like there's so many times I'm like, this is the video. Oh, people are going to lose their minds. And then it's like, no one cares. And then I'll post something just randomly that I'm like, I don't know. And people love it. So I think I've gotten more comfortable just throwing stuff out there, but I don't look at numbers in general very much. I try to just like post and then it's done. I think that's easier too, because I do comedy videos. Because I love to brag that I don't read comments, but at the same time, like the comments aren't really about me. Most of them are like, haha, and I like don't really need to read that. I think maybe if people were commenting on me as a person, I'd be more like inclined to be like, what are they saying? But I don't read too many comments, but I try to just, at least I'm really trying in the new year to just find joy in creating, put it out there, and what happens. And I'm lucky that like doing the mom character I do is like one of my favorite things. So I never get tired of it. I always like doing it. And I'll do that forever if I could.
Who edits for you? So once you get... Okay, because that was the other thing is I was explaining to my husband because he's like, you have to outsource. I'm like, nobody else knows my voice. Like I storytell in a certain way and then I have to voice it over anyway because I write in my head as I go. As I'm shooting, I know, okay, this should be 4 seconds because I know what I'm going to say. Yeah. I'm like, I can't outsource my stuff. I can outsource my client stuff.
Yeah.
Love my clients. But like my own stuff, I have to do it. And so that is the hardest thing for me, is just finding that time. The shooting, I've got ample ideas. It's like okay, now we have to sit and edit it. I'm like, oh, how do you do that when, like, you know, your wife's going to want to spend time with you? Like your partner is there and is like, hi, we both can't be on our phones all the time working. Yeah. How do you really, truly split that time?
Well, luckily they love to work as well. So they're we're both a little workaholics. So, you know, whenever like, hey, how are you working? But I do feel like, I mean, first of all, I'm editing TikTok. So that's a much shorter process. And I'm, you know, fast enough now. I can edit a TikTok in 2 minutes. But when it goes to YouTube or it goes to our podcast, it's such, I mean, we have an editor for our podcast, but on my YouTube
so much easier. I have an editor for that too, because that's just easy. Yes. I'm like, clean it up, put an intro, put an outro, make sure I'm not cursing. Done.
Yes, totally. But I'm a super control freak when it comes to my content, because for the longest time I've been doing, you know, directing, writing, costuming, set, editing, production, I mean, everything. And it's really hard to outsource stuff because it feels, I think for me, I'm like, all the comedy is in the editing. Like I feel like I have, right, it's like all how I edit it. And I think you could like, I think there are people that I'll see on the internet, I'm like, oh, that would have gone viral if they had edited it this way. Like this video is very funny. What they did in the video isn't wrong, but it's just the way, little too long here, a little too short here, had to cut here. And so I get very, I don't know if I'd be able to outsource that, but when it comes to my YouTube channel, it is really tough because we're at a time where you have to just do all the platforms, and everyone wants you on Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky now. Like, there's always something new. And
there's something new now.
Yes, exactly. And so it's hard to be a creator on all of those things. And whenever I go to make a YouTube, I'll post a 4-minute sketch, but it's filmed well, it's edited well, and like that took me 4 days. And so when people are like, and, you know, and then my manager will be like, you should be posting a video every week. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. So eventually I need to like outsource, but it's a very tough thing to do. And I think it used to be someone was a YouTuber or someone was an Instagram comedian, but now it's like you're expected to kind of be all of the above, which can really add up.
Well, you're all the things. I mean, which is why brands really had to understand, and advertisers really had to understand, like, you are the writer, the star, you're shooting, you're editing, you're directing, like you're all the things. That's why I think when people think oh, this content creation thing, it's just so easy. You're in your funny videos. It's like, you have no idea what this took for me to do. Do you explain to people the process, or are you just like, yep, it's just funny videos? Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm friends with mostly comedians, so I think everyone kind of knows like what goes into it. Like I grew up doing Upright Citizens Brigade, so most of my friends are, if not on the internet, or doing some, you know, are on TV or whatever it is. So I think there's a pretty good knowledge of that. But in general, I mean, I feel really lucky to do what I do for a job, and I definitely, you know, physically, it's much easier than when I was like a server or janitor. So I'm always like grateful to have it, and not like too, I'm sure a doctor could tell me a bunch I don't know about being a doctor. So I'm always kind of like, we all got our own stuff that's hard in our job.
That's true. So when did it turn where you could actually monetize it? Was it fairly quick because you grew fast, but then also monetizing you as a brand with like ad deals and sponsorships? Did that come through management, like getting to that next level? Like, how did it all sort of explode into, oh, like this is a business, I am a brand?
Yeah, it was pretty slow because TikTok was so new. So I think people didn't really know. And now I'm able to do stuff on YouTube and Instagram, but at the time I didn't. I just had TikTok, and brands were kind of like, what is this? Like, are we supposed to treat it the same as other platforms? We don't really know. So in the beginning, I didn't really get anything, but I also had, I mean, I was, once again, a janitor. I was in so much debt you cannot even believe. I had no money. I was like putting my rent on a credit card. Like, I had nothing. So when I remember getting my first brand deal for $500, I literally walked into my boss as a janitor and was like, I quit. Like, I was like, I'm Miss Moneybags over here. Like, crazy. It was insane. I just never had any money. I literally thought, I was like, I'm rich. Like, this is what a rich person feels like. And so that was a tough couple.
Yeah, don't do that. If you were side hustling with
No.
content, like save up a little bit longer. It's because
Yeah.
it's ups and downs too. It ebbs and flows. The
Well, also, you
money.
don't get paid immediately. So it was also like I was 6 months later received a check for $500 and was like, I am not doing well. So it was tough. You also didn't have like the creator fund. Like, all this stuff was newish. And then when I got a manager, things really, it started to be able to really be like a really good business for me. And then, yeah, now I'm able to make a great living off it. But in the beginning, it took some time.
So for creators that are at like my level, right? Like we're at the micro level, we're trying to grow. When does the manager come in at a certain level of followers, or because I do know there's managers for content creators that are like micro content creators, and then they have bigger ones too. Was it you approaching somebody else, or did they come to you? Like, where in that level of the conversation do I start? Of like, oh, this is what I can show you. Because obviously they want numbers, some sort of a return on investment for whoever they're pairing you with. But like, when does that convo start?
They came to me, which was really crazy because I, once again, had been like an actor for years. So I'd been, sending out letters to hundreds of agents for years being like, please look at me. And then all of a sudden I had a TikTok video and people were like reaching out to me, which was crazy. So I got my manager through that. But I think it is, I've seen so many people at so many different levels. I think sometimes it's not the amount of followers you have. It really is like the engagement that you get. Because I think there are smaller micro influencers that have such a like if we both had a meet and greet, they would have it sold out and I would not, because their followers are so invested in them as a person. So I think that's like really what matters. But I'm always just like, go for it, because I think with most things, even people are like, how much am I supposed to charge for this? And I'm like, well, you could ask a manager and they could give you like a technical answer, but honestly, just throw out a huge number. Like I feel like, because you're working with a lot of people who also don't really know. Like they're kind of like, okay, like, sure, that's what an influencer gets paid. I have no idea. So I think just kind of faking it till you make it is really important in this world, and making people like reaching out. I think if people aren't reaching out to you, just reach out to them and really make it clear, like your audience is super engaged and here's what you bring to the table. And I think most people will be excited, to work.
I'm trying to figure all that out. I think it's hard to like have one foot still and like, oh my God, I may have to go back and get it like a job in the corporate world. And then another foot in like, I want to go all in on this content thing. But to do it, I have to be truthful, honest, and authentic. And it's like, well, if they see who I really am, they're not going to hire me back in the corporate world. But at a certain point in time, like you have to sort of double down and believe in yourself. Like, no, I can do this. I can do this.
Well, I think it's so hard. And like, it's really hard too, because it's not like, especially when it comes to manager stuff, it's like, there's really no advice because it's so random. Like I, all the time will see a management company that's huge. I mean, just like a really the best of the best. And they've signed someone that I'm like, what? That's such a random person. And then all the time I'll meet someone who I'm like, oh, they're the most successful person ever. And they're like, yeah, I can't find management. So it's very random. And so it's hard to give advice on, but I think in terms of just like pushing through, it was a very dumb decision and not good advice to quit your job after you get your first brand deal. But to look back, the silver lining was I just forced myself to do it. And I think it's kind of, even at the time I was like, well, I can always be a janitor again, which was true. And I have then 7 days a week to really commit. And I think the beginning is like the most important part. Like if you get any traction, you have to just like shove yourself in people's faces. And I think it's a hard transition because usually when people are going through that, they also have a day job. So they're like, that is a really tough time to be doing 2 full-time jobs. But I think just throwing yourself in fully is like the most you can do in an industry where there's really no stability. I mean, this is just an industry where you can't do the most to get a certain place for sure. It's all just so random. So
yeah, we own a construction company. So I told my husband, I was like, we're going to rely on your check for a while because I'm going to just be out here making videos and just people are going to hate me. And that is okay. No, I just had to get out of the bubble, right? I used to be in radio. So my Instagram account started when I was in radio. So it's those same people that some of outright have told me we're just watching you to fail. I'm like, great.
Oh my God, no.
Keep watching. So I'm transitioning that audience to outside of that bubble. And it's like, okay, how do I do this in a way that it's sustainable? I'm not going to burn out, which I know I'm going to burn out anyway, because I'm going to I call it a content churn. Somebody asked me the other day, like, oh my God, you're showing up a lot. And I was like, yeah, it's a content churn. Before I launch anything, I churn the out of content, like post, stories, and utilize everything. I think a lot of people aren't understanding, like, utilize the reels, utilize the posts, utilize stories. You're great at utilizing stories, and then go live, go to threads, like do everything that they give to you. Right. I get those phone calls from Meta all the time where it's like, you're not utilizing threads. You should do that. It's like, why? Because you're pushing it. Ugh. Yeah. Like threads is like a soap opera. I have to stay out of that. Like I don't want to go there anymore. Totally. My daughter's going to come down in a little bit. So I want to get, when she comes down, we'll get into like you as a kid and performing. Yeah. And like, how do I as a parent help encourage her and take her to the next step? So we're going to pause on that because I do want to talk to you about that. So when you are creating content that's now monetized and you have a brand deal and you're a fake character, right, in the ad, how do you negotiate those parameters? Because you're creative, so you're going to write for your character and your brand, not necessarily for the ad. How many times do you have to go back and forth, or is there just an agreement in the beginning that Kendahl gets to write whatever she wants and it is what it is?
It's so funny because I never would have thought like doing comedy. I really am now like I could work in a marketing. I'm like a marketing person. I feel like I really could do it and enjoy it, because I think what's so funny about commercials, you see all the time on TikTok, people like, here's a commercial I'd pitch for this thing. But it's like, yeah, but you have no parameters. Like anyone can come up with maybe not anyone, but a lot of people can come up with a really cool idea for a commercial if there's absolutely no rules in place. And I think I've learned so much through doing branded content, it is that like such a hard skill to be able to captivate people, make them watch a full video while knowing, because they have to know that it's legally, they know it's an ad. And you have to get across like 5 key points. And I remember just getting so frustrated early on because I would meet with the brand and they'd be like, we want this to feel real. Like we really want it to feel real. Like we literally want people to not know it's an ad. Could you say in the beginning, this shoe is produced in this place and is on sale for $4.99? Like, I'm like, how am I going to say that and make it sound real? And it would be like 8 things like that. And they'd be like, and we want under 30 seconds. I'm like, okay, well, if I said everything you told me, that's going to be over 30 seconds. And I will have said nothing besides all these really promotional things. It sounds like a just seen on TV or I've seen on TV ad. So it's a really hard skill to learn. And I do think I feel like very proud of my ads. I honestly love.
They're great because you don't know it's an ad unless you look down and saw a hashtag ad. Most of the time you lead us in where we have no idea it's an ad. And then it's at the end where you're like, boom.
Got to trick them. But I love it. I love doing that. But I think like I really believe like an ad can be entertainment. And obviously,
100%. It's almost, it could just be more like product placement. Not like I have to get these key talking points out. It's like,
totally.
I'd love to help you with your key talking points, but no one's going to pay attention and they will swipe to the next thing and then we both lose.
And I think everyone's learning. Like, I think brands are starting to get it. Like, they're like, okay, I can't, and it's so hard because whenever you're working with a brand, you're working with 87,000 people. Like, they are all like trying to work for everyone else and be like, well, we need you to do this for this. And so it's very hard. But I think over time they have learned that like people, it has to feel a little bit real. It takes so much to make someone go click a link. Like you have to, have a gun to their head. It's like, nobody will go click a link. That's never going to happen. And I think people are realizing like, oh, it's more important to just have people seeing this product. And I don't know if it's how the rest of people are allowed to do their brand deals, but I know for me now it's much more like just do whatever you want. But I think I've built like a trust over time that I, make an ad that is not just, that is silly, but also really does promote the product. So.
Well, and potentially shareable, which is even better, right? Because you've created product awareness and around a character and like in your zone, naturally, organically, not changing that character for the product, and then also making it shareable content because it's funny and I still want people to see it. I don't care if it's an ad, right? Like that's what they should all be aiming for. So you should probably teach a class to all these sponsors and brands about marketing, like Marketing 101.
Yeah, totally.
When you started to collab, so I know Eric is on some of your videos, right? And then do you do stand-up with Eric too?
I don't do stand-up, but he does stand-up, and he's
okay. All right. So how did that come about? Did he approach you? Did you approach him? Have you known him forever? Like, and were you scared to like, hey, let's add another character to this?
Yeah. I don't even remember who reached out to who, but I think I might have reached out to him, or we followed each other and then one of us DM'd each other. And I just moved to LA too, so I was like trying to meet friends, and him and I went out to coffee, and I just like, Eric is someone who truly, I will spend a whole night with him just like cackling. Like, I'm not even saying anything. Like, so he's so good at stand up. He can just like talk on stream, and I'm just like dying laughing. So we went out to coffee, and I remember just being like truly crying laughing and being like, we have to make videos together. And he's someone where we truly do just improvise it. Like, I don't write when I go into videos with Eric. Like, we'll just make stuff up and make each other laugh. They're like the only videos I do where I will like break character in them and like keep it in the video, because it brings me so much joy. So him and I, we've been collabing for a while now, which is so fun. And then we also just are friends in real life, which is a treat.
So then do you write together? Do you have time where it's like consciously, hey, Eric, let's plan something? Or how does that happen?
Go off the cuff. I mean, we'll usually be like, here's the video we're going to make, just so we know what to wear. Like, we'll be like, okay, we're going to do we're two teachers, so dress like a teacher. And then we really will just kind of like improvise, but someone will be filming us for 25 minutes, cut it down to 2 minutes. So there's a lot in there of us being like, okay, well, now what should we say? And a lot of dead air, but we edited it down to be a video. Yeah.
Is there ever a time where you're going to start doing a couple of like BTS behind the scenes of shooting stuff, or do you just feel like just stick to the funny?
I would love to do that. I mean, it's not in my comfort zone. I think I am very much like, hide behind my characters a little bit, and not even, I'm proud of who I am, but it's intimidating to put yourself out there in the internet in that way. And I don't find myself to be like, and not even a dig to myself, but I don't find myself to be like a really funny person. I think I'm good at being I'm a comedian. Like, I can write jokes and be a comedian, and I do that. But one-on-one, I'm much more just normal, talking about normal things. So I think I've always been like, nobody wants to see what I have to say. And I think this last year I pushed myself a lot more just doing podcasting.
Congratulations. I mean, you did huge numbers. That's amazing. Were you guys like, holy crap, this is awesome? Like, pat yourselves on the back. Like, you should be proud of yourselves.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we were so excited. We like wanted it to do well so bad. And I'd obviously done a podcast. I did the BCC Club with Sarah Shower. And then I'd never done a podcast before. And when I first started that, I was like, never let me do a podcast. Like, to my partner, I was like, if someone ever's like, Kendahl, do a podcast, like, just kill me. Like, I don't want to do it. But I said yes to doing it for some reason. And it was great. And I'm so glad I did. But then a year later, Jordan and I just like worked so much. We worked so much. And, it's maybe a crazy fix to add something else if the problem is we're working too much. But we just wanted a time to like spend together where we could hang out and chat and get to like, just even having the car ride to the studio is so nice. And so we were like, wouldn't it be so amazing if we could really make hanging out a job? And now we can. So that's just
the best. That's such my husband left for work this morning. I'm like, when can we work together again? I just want to work with you. I hate when he leaves.
I know, it's such a bummer. And like, in this industry, it's always like, what more can you do? So it's like being in that place where you're like, I need to do more, but I don't have time. I don't want to do more because I want to like hang out with my wife. And so I think it's just been like so great to get to talk, because even though it is obviously performative in some aspect, we really are just getting to chat for a couple hours every Friday or whenever. So nice. And then I think to see the way people have responded to it has been great too. I think your audience is such a reflection of you. And I think our audience is just so lovely and nice. And we connect with them a lot because they send in questions and they email us and send follow-up questions. And so that's been just an absolute delight.
I saw you guys in Brooklyn when you did the dating game.
Oh, yeah, thank you for coming.
For the New York Comedy Festival. It was so funny. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what to anticipate. How many shows of those have you done? And is that something you guys are going to continue to do together? Or was it just like a few of them and we're out?
We've done maybe 12 of them, and we did them primarily in LA. It used to be, we had a monthly show at the Upright Citizens Brigade. So it was monthly, and then we kind of were like, we can't do it monthly anymore, but we want to do it whenever. So now kind of when we want, we do it on Valentine's Day usually, we do one around Pride. But it is a bizarre show. And
it's so bizarre, but so funny.
We have so much fun doing it. Basically, it's like, I mean, you saw it, but it's, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like we have real people come from the internet. They're not like comedians. They're not performers. These are like, they are people who are like, we have doctors, lawyers, teachers, all of the above, submit to date on our show. And we do matchmaking and kind of commentate the matchmaking. And then we do improv after. But it's like so fun. And every show is obviously very different because it's always a different group of people. But we've only taken it out of LA twice, to Chicago, and then this last time to New York. So I
thought it was so funny. And then I love how Jordan like sort of takes the reins and allows you to still be you, which was so great because she's just like all about the business. But it was perfect. Oh, yeah.
I always feel like
flowed perfectly.
We're like Sophia Grace and Rosie, if you ever watched on Ellen. But she's kind of like,
oh, yes.
Sophia Grace, I'm Rosie behind like dancing. Jordan kind of keeps what's happening going, which is
that's actually really funny. So a lot of the comments that you get on some of your stuff, which you said you don't read, but I'm gonna tell you, is like, you should be on SNL. You should be on SNL. Does that frustrate you? Is that a goal? Like, where are we going with this content creation and the brand?
Right. I mean, I would love to be on SNL.
Like, I should be on SNL. Of course I should. Thank you so much for stating the obvious.
I know. I would love, I mean, it always makes me feel good. It's obviously, any comedian, I think, from the beginning of time, like the first job I remember wanting was to be on SNL. Like, I would love to be on SNL. I have auditioned for SNL. I hope to get there one day. But I'd like to think in the loop a little bit. So maybe one day. I think it's just so random, like anything in this industry. It's nice. I've always considered it kind of like a big goal that I work towards. And in that, the working towards it, I found what I actually will probably do. Other jobs that I'll probably get. And I think one day if I ever book SNL, it'll just be so draw of a hat that will be nice. But then I'd have to move to New York, which I don't really want to do.
Right. You move to New York. I mean, they would be smart. You probably have a bigger audience than they do sometimes, right? Because TV is hard now. It's just the reality. Like, people just don't tune in.
They're hiring some TikTokers I've seen. I think they're starting. I think in general, like even just behind the scenes, when I hear like management companies talk with each other, it's like there is a merger happening of like internet and traditional media. And I think it used to be a lot of internet people being like, we want to collab with traditional media, like we want to get in there. But I think it's really starting to be like traditional media is like, help us.
Well, because you come with an audience. Yeah. I would watch you. I don't think I've watched SNL in years. I would immediately be like, yep, we're going to watch it. We're going to tape it. I'm probably going to do content about it and tell everybody else to watch. Right? Like, they would be dumb not to do that. It just makes sense. If you can't get eyeballs on your thing, where are the eyeballs? Oh, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and now freaking Blue Sky, apparently. So I got to figure out what that is. Oh my gosh. Does this TikTok ban thing, which it's, I don't feel like it's going to happen in the same way people think it's going to happen. Sure. Does it freak you out because it's where you started? Or do you feel like, let's ride this wave, it'll be fine?
I think I've been weirdly calm. Like, I don't feel stressed, and maybe I should. I think it's so hard to imagine how that would happen. But I always assume, people go, just because TikTok's leaving, people aren't leaving social media. People are going to go somewhere else. And so I've always, I'm lucky that I've built over the last couple of years a platform other places. I think more than anything, I'm just bummed. Like, I think it truly is this like, we had such a good run, you guys.
Right, like, that's how I felt. Like, I cried. I did a video of me crying like months ago when they first were. I was like, no, this is where, like, this is my safe space. Like, don't take it away.
Yeah, and it really is like a platform like any other, because it, I think, is like so much in this industry is for rich people and for people who have connections and people whose parents are already writers on a show, and everything is just so not up to anyone and nothing is equal. And I think TikTok is really like the first thing that it's like, it's really like the people's choice. Like, it doesn't matter what your camera, like, even if we go to Instagram, it's like, well, how nice is your camera? How much money do you make to be able to live a lifestyle that people want to look at photos of? Like, and obviously Reels exist now, but really TikTok was like the first thing to be like, if you make good content and you are in a dark room and my first video I ever filmed was in a horribly lit room with a front facing camera. It looked so bad. I did. It was at the time where you still had to type out all the captions. So
Oh my
all my
God.
captions were fully misspelled because I have dyslexia. It was just like absolutely a terrible video. And people, but I think the jokes were there. Like the jokes were there and people identified that and liked that. And so it really did feel like such a equal place for people to find success. And so I think that I have a very emotional connection to TikTok because it is like there's people who still comment on my videos. I remember commenting when I had 10,000 followers and was a janitor, and now my life is completely different. And I'm, getting to be like, I should be on SNL. And it's such a different life now. And I do have so much nostalgia for, my TikTok, was where I started. But I think a lot of people who went through Vine, I'm close with Sarah Schauer. We do podcasts. She obviously got big on Vine and that ended in a really abrupt way. And so I think it always ends up working
like your
out.
audience will find you type of a thing. Like, have you thought of creating a funnel and collecting like a CRM list with emails and stuff? So you're like, okay, well, if this does die, here's everywhere you can find me. Or are you just sort of like writing it out and seeing what happens?
Well, I have now put on TikTok at the end of my videos. It's like, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. But on
YouTube, Instagram and YouTube, I think you have.
No one's doing it. I mean, I don't feel like anyone's going to actually go do that. Maybe a couple people, which is super awesome. But I think it is a hard thing where some people, I mean, when Vine ended, there were people who just ceased to be successful.
That was it. Right.
And I think that will definitely happen on TikTok. I also think TikTok's a very specific platform. I mean, there are people on TikTok who are famous for like owning a bunch of Stanley Cups.
Yeah, literally. It's the most random thing.
There's a woman on TikTok who sometimes I watch. I'm kind of obsessed. She has a foot condition and she just peels her feet and she talks and she's a delightful lady. And it's like, and she's like famous and she has like millions of followers. So I do think I think there will be some people that might be left behind, but I think in this industry, and I'm not a pro on this, but I feel like in this industry, it's kind of like who's willing to grind it out the most, like on every platform. And I think there were people, I mean, Liza Koshy, I remember when Vine ended, she immediately was on YouTube. And now she was able to grow with that. And some people waited a year and then were like, now I'm going to get on YouTube. And it's like, it's just too cutthroat sometimes.
Right. Well, I also see like YouTube as our network, right? Like we don't have to pitch to Hulu or Netflix or ABC or NBC. We can have our own network. If we can afford to like keep the content churn going up and writing and the time, then like we can own our own content. We don't have to pitch to anybody else. It's not easy. I mean, your wife works with Mythical, right? And so they're doing that. They're like, you know what? We pitched. It didn't work out. We're going to have control over our own content. We're going to put our own money into it.
Yeah.
I think it's a brilliant strategy. Do you see yourself sort of following that strategy for your brand, or you don't see yourself as like Mythical with so much different programming underneath their bigger brand?
The thought of being like Mythical is so funny because it's so massive. It's like, I can't even imagine that world. There's so much. I'm always amazed. I'm like, 50 videos a day from 8 different channels from Mythical. I'm like, what's happening? But I think I'm very where the wind takes me because I think you kind of have to be sometimes in this world. I think it was like, when TikTok came out, I was like, or when I did okay on TikTok, I was like, okay, this is my thing now. Like, let me run with this. And sometimes random things will do well that I never expect. And I run with that. And I think that is so much, you have to be kind of a Renaissance man in this industry where you're just trying to do anything. So I would my dream is to be on TV and in movies. Like that would be my absolute dream. I would love, I'm, pretty private. And I think I don't get to be really on the internet very much. And it does give me anxiety. Like I do a lot of like setting boundaries within my podcast and not talk about what I don't want to talk about, but I still find myself feeling like I've overshared or like I'm just pretty private in general. So I think I find myself getting exhausted on the internet sometimes because I feel like I've given so much of myself away sometimes, which, mostly that just bothers me when I'm like on my period or something, but sometimes
now this whole week, I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to
Yes, exactly.
Like, I'm on my period. Okay. It'll be okay.
100%. So I feel like sometimes there's moments where I'm like, oh, I would love, it's what I went to school for, acting. I would love to get to play a character and then go home and be with my dogs and like, not hear what people are saying about what I did. But I think, the grass is always greener on the other side. So I also love the control I have in my content. I love that I can only post things that I really like. I love all the flexibility in my life, and like, it pays very well. I like that. So I feel like I'm able to, but I would love to, be on TV is what I like. But I'm very open to continuing on the internet and staying here for as long as they'll have me.
Do you see adding like a paid community, or do you feel like, no, let's keep it this way, brand deals, sponsorships, ads, and give everybody the content for free?
I think on the podcasting side, I do have like paid stuff. So Happy Wife, Happy Life, my podcast I have with my partner, is we have a Patreon where we post extra episodes. I think I probably cannot see myself ever putting anything behind a paywall unless it was a really like high budget. If I was doing something like Dropout does, where it's like I'm doing full productions that cost money, because I think what's hard with sketch comedy is you really can't make a ton of money on it, and it's so expensive. You're producing a short film basically, and then it's only 4 minutes, so it can't monetize, and it is just not a sustainable way. So you've seen people like Smosh or Dropout be able to do that by putting it behind a paywall. So in that realm, I could see that, but I do love showing everyone everything of my content. I think it would be hard for me to make a video I really liked and then not share it with everyone. I think I'd find myself putting like the videos I didn't like as much behind a paywall, which feels like insane.
The complete reverse of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, like pay for worse videos if you want to see absolutely more of me. I don't know. But so I can't see myself doing that. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're adorable. All right, she should be walking in here. Hold on. Like, where are you, child?
And she's a performer?
She is a performer. You just remind me so much of her, because can you come down? Just don't knock into all of the wires.
Oh.
Okay. And so she'll perform just because she thinks it's funny. And so as soon as I pull out a phone, she's just like, which is so funny. Like, she just does it because it's funny. She likes to make people laugh. And I'm like, mommy wants to retire.
Yeah. All growing up, it was like my parents got the front row seat to it. Like, I would just be in the living room, like doing bits for them. And they were like, who's this for?
That's what she does. She'll walk downstairs with like a mustache on and like a cane and pretend she's an old man. I'm like, who is this for?
Rude.
All right, come sit. Come on. So do you have questions you want to ask her?
I thought of one question during the school day. How would you explain your career now to your younger self?
Oh my gosh, it's so wild because my mom sent me a video the other day, or a picture of me in front of like a white wall, and I was like filming a YouTube video when I was like in 6th grade. I really wanted to be a YouTuber. That was like my dream. So I think I would just be so excited. I would probably just explain that I am doing that, which is really cool. But I think I would have to really tell myself that it's I have to keep up the energy, which I think I always had, but of just trying everything and not being like, this is the thing I do, but really being open to stand up and sketch and acting and serious acting. Like I used to be like, I just do comedy. And then I went to school for more dramatic acting, and that helped me so much with my comedic acting. So I think it all, I would just be like, you got to be a jack of all trades is probably what I would say.
What did your parents think when you were younger and they would hear you in your room, or you would come out and do all the things? Did your parents encourage it, or were they like, no, you have to get a real job? Acting in comedy is not a real job, Kendahl. Like,
no, they loved it. I mean, I think they were just like, don't get in trouble at school. Like, they really, besides that, there was nothing else. And so, and sometimes I did get in trouble. I had ADHD, so I was a big chatter. So I got in trouble a lot at school. But they were just like, as long as you're a nice person, we really don't care. But they were very excited. My dad, he really wanted a famous child very much, in a way that was truly ridiculous. Like, it was his absolute dream to have a famous child. And he would, like, anything anyone showed remotely interest in, he would be like, how do we make you famous? Like, I was pretty good at golf. Like, I was fine. And he was like, she's a prodigy. He's reaching out to colleges being like, you got to come look at her. Let's get her on tape. Let's film her. Let's put her on YouTube. He was the one who's like sending videos into America's Funniest Home Videos. Like, he wanted us to be a famous family. So he loved the thought of me doing comedy. But I really was, like I was saying before you came in, I was mostly performed for my parents. Like they were the first people who really like watched me ever do an impression. Like I remember doing an impression of Sarah Palin when I was like 6. I thought it was the funniest thing. I like did not know who she was, but I thought it was so funny because she had that Midwestern accent. And or wasn't it Alaskan accent? I don't know.
Alaskan. I don't even know. It's very Midwestern in my opinion.
Yeah. And so I loved doing that and just making people laugh. And I would like put on costumes and come out to the living room and do little bits. And so they were very supportive. And I think I was really consistent too. I always wanted to do the same thing. Like I always wanted to be an actor.
So for as long as you remember, you just knew, like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Sounds
There
very
was a time when I was
familiar.
4, I wanted to work at Krispy Kreme. That was like a brief stint. I really wanted to work at Krispy Kreme.
All the hot donuts you can possibly want, of course.
I was obsessed and I like really wanted that. And then I was kind of like, okay, I want to be an actor. And so I think, by the time I was in high school, even though it was kind of, not a great career choice, my parents were like, well, what can we say? I mean, this is like what she's only ever really wanted one thing. So, they were really supportive.
Do you feel like we are supportive enough, or do you feel like I'm over supportive? Because I'm very much like your dad. I'm like, she's so talented, like she's going to be more famous than any of us in this family.
You want to be an actor?
You answer that.
I do want to be an actor,
That's amazing.
or at least be involved in somewhat acting, like theater and stuff, like be in the pit, because I play the cello and stuff. But I do feel like you guys are really supportive, and I love that. And I love that I have a family that can support me like that.
Oh, how cute is that?
I got to screen record that to send when you're famous.
I'm media trained.
But she's also funny. Like, she gets comedy. Like, she gets timing. I keep telling her, like, just start editing for me and help me with that. And then we can focus on your stuff. I also think, like, reaction videos. I'm like, that's a thing that I think that you could do easily just to get content started, to get used to just filming and showing up. She's just so funny. And she's funny in a very meta way. She doesn't do it for an audience. She does it because she's entertaining herself. And then if she gets a laugh out of us, then it's like, oh, okay, I did my job. And I'm like, no, you have to share this with other people.
It's such a hard thing to like transition it to something. Like, it's so hard. I mean, I even struggle where I'm like, I wish I could be, I'll do something like, I wish I could make this funny, but it's so funny in my, like now, but film it and make it really funny is a whole other thing. But it is, once you learn how to do that, the sky's the limit. It's well,
and that's why I think improv is so important to her. We had an improv group here for kids, but a lot of kids acting is musical theater, and that's not really what she wants to do. She's not the best singer, and that's not me saying it. You're aware.
Chill out, buddy.
Yeah. She's like, okay.
She has potential, but she doesn't want a vocal coach, right?
Well,
like, we all have to work on the craft, whatever it is.
I was a terrible singer, and I had a similar thing. It's like everything's musical theater. And I was so bad at singing, and I did take vocal lessons. I mean, I really wanted to do a good job. And I remember the teacher being like, I don't know. Like, I've never seen someone be so bad at singing. I was so bad. And I remember auditioning for Addams Family Musical in my high school. And it was it's still a moment. Most things from my childhood I would never be embarrassed about. I'm like, I was a child, but I still think about this and like cringe in my head because it was in front of all my classmates. And I sang. The audition song I chose had opera in it for some reason. Once again, very overconfident. I chose an opera piece to do. It was so bad. And it was like, I could hear it being so bad. And I didn't get in. But I got to be the director of the show, which was fun. So that was
she likes the behind the scenes. I get it.
Yeah. I got to do a little behind the scenes. But I think I made a lot of my own stuff. And I really was like, the whole time I was posting YouTube videos every week for no one. I had 0 subscribers. And I would literally post videos being like, hey guys, sorry I was gone last week. Like, I had this trip with my family, but like, I'm back. Like, no one's commenting. No one cares.
Talking to nobody. But I do that now.
So I did that. And then I had an improv troupe at my high school called Comedy Sports, which is like short form improv. And I treated it like it was the Super Bowl. Like, I was so annoying about it, and truly, I mean, I was pretty bitchy about it too. I was like, really like, we will make cuts. Like, I'm not messing around. Like, if you won't get to do the improv show if you're not showing up to practice. Like, I was so intense. It was the most important thing to me in the entire world. And so I think I just like, even though other people didn't think it was important, even if the musical theater was getting a lot more attention, I just took what I could and treated it like the most important thing. And you can really trick your brain, because I was like, because
it was important to you. And I feel like, because as soon as we lost the improv thing, there's really nobody else doing it to the level that she wants to do it at. Like, I'm almost like, I want to beg adult classes and just be like, let her in, just let her in. Like,
just lie about my age. I look old enough.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
She's 12. But you're really quickly, speaking of being in that like 11, 12, your first stand-up was at 11. Is that really true? I read that on your page. Is that true? It's still on your website, by the way. Your website is hilarious. It's literally like lesbian actress comedian.
Oh my God. Yes, I did do my first stand-up set at 11, but I can't even take credit for it because I didn't write the stand-up. I like did stand-up, but I took someone else's stand-up. I like didn't, you're 11, you like don't know how things work. So I can't remember what it was, but I like wrote down someone's stand-up routine and I don't think I lied and said it was mine, but I like performed it at a children's theater performance. And it was so fun, but no, I did not write it. I used to try to write stand-up though as a kid, but it's hard. I remember
It's hard. You're keeping people interested just to storytelling, which is fascinating. Do you have any other questions for her? It's fine if you don't. What advice do you have for her? So she's in that space, right? Like she wants to create, she wants to be an actress. Okay. I, as the parent, feel like she's talented than most people are that exist in this universe. What do we do next?
Okay. This is it's so, you already are like so ahead of the game because I was shocked when you just said you're 12. To know like already what you want to do, to be like so sure of yourself and already be thinking like, okay, how can I move forward in a career? It's like, you're so beyond doing what most people are doing. So that's so exciting. But I think I think it's hard because I think in this industry, a lot of advice is ultimately bad advice, but to do the industry, it is the advice I would give. And I think, when I was deciding what to do with my life, I was like, should I have a plan B? And a lot of people tell you to, and I think that is also great. But I think there is truth to going so deep into something and then having no way out truly, because I think this industry is really hard. And there were times where I was like, I cannot do this, but I really have no other choice. Like I didn't go to college. I'm not telling you to not go to college. This would be really bad.
No, I'm fine. I'm totally fine with that. No college.
If you want to go to college, you really should. I
told you. I said I'm not paying for it. I'd rather buy you a duplex and you can rent out the other side and then just act and create content. I'm not.
I love it. But if you're like, oh, I don't really feel like college, whatever it is, like I think just jumping into something wholeheartedly is great. And I think I would make a completely different choice now at 25, being like, I have a little more knowledge. But at 18, I made this huge decision. And I think it was chaotic and based in not really understanding money or how the world works. But I'm grateful that I had to like stick to that decision that me, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 18 made, because it was really just based on what I love. So I think just going all in, knowing that it's going to be tough, but I think really just creating your own stuff, especially nowadays, because there's really so little control we get in the industry, but I think you can always be making something. And that's becoming kind of the way people get in who don't have a famous dad, who don't have a rich family. Like that is the way that they're able to get in. It's the way that I was able to get in. But I think you really can like make a movie on your iPhone now and it can go to a film festival. Like it's insane. And it like really could we've had movies nominated for huge awards that have been filmed on an iPhone. So it's just an exciting time, but just don't worry about being embarrassing, because I look back at things I did in high school that really, all those YouTube videos I made, I'm sure people were bullying me behind my back because it was so ultimate. I would have bullied myself I would have been like, she's so embarrassing. But I made them and they did teach me so much. Like I was so good at editing. And I think that when I then was doing TikTok for a living, I was ahead of the game because I'd been practicing all through my adolescence. So I think just don't worry about getting made fun of or anything. Like you may not be, you seem pretty self-assured, but don't worry about that, because if you're embarrassing yourself at a young age, it means you're really going to be really cool later.
Well, because you know what you want to do. You're on the track, right? I'm going to outro Kendahl. Do you want to outro Kendahl or?
Yeah, sure.
You want to do it?
Why not?
Okay, upbeat and excited. Kendahl Landreth, thank you so much for joining us.
Hold on, let me get ready for this.
You can do it.
Wow, I love it.
All right, I'm taking myself out of it. You're in frame. Ready?
Oh my God.
Wait, what am I supposed to say?
You're going to outro her. Thank you so much for joining my mom on her podcast that I don't watch and don't support because I hate. No.
That I've never seen.
But don't watch this episode. It's not appropriate for you. Don't watch it.
That's her impression of me. This is where it's gonna start.
See, that's what my whole career was me making fun of my mom.
God, I didn't even put that together.
That's what I would do.
You did it.
Start doing impressions.
No, I didn't even put that together. That's so okay. So outside of myself. You do your outro, then I'll do my outro, and then Kendahl can say whose is better. Ready? In 3, 2.
Huh?
Just outro her. Thank you so much for.
Look away.
All right, Kendahl.
Wait,
She has limited time. We're already over time.
I need
She's
to be
gotta
fed
go.
a line. Hold on.
Kendahl, thank you so much for joining my mom on her podcast, The Producer Rachel Show. Make sure everybody likes and subscribes.
Kendahl, thank you so much for joining my mom on her show, The Producer Rachel Show, and make sure everyone likes and subscribes.
That was incredible.
She's fine. It's okay. It's an 8 out of 10.
You got the
You're
stage,
gonna
Mom.
re-record this 10 times right
I'm
after
not going to re-record it. Kendall, honestly, thank you so much for staying true to your word. We met at VidCon in July, like months and months ago, and you said yes to me, and I appreciate that. I love you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. You make people laugh. You're my happy space. And when I see your videos pop up, I immediately like it. I don't even care what the rest of the video is. So tell your advertisers that.
So much. Thank you. I really appreciate it so much. I'm so happy we could make this happen.
Oh, we did it!
We did it. We did.
No.
You mostly did it.
I did, but because I needed the time with her to ask the questions that I wanted to ask. Because as a creator getting into this world, I consistently have this like 1 foot in content creation and then 1 foot in like, oh, do I want to be a media company or do I have to go work for another corporation? No, I'm just making sure your mic is on. And so to hear her say it, I met with Alicia McCarville. I recorded an episode with her today.
I don't know
To say like treat it like you have no other options, right? And I think that that's sort of with your, especially with the comedy, that's kind of where you come from, where it's like, no, I like deep down inside, like I am a comedian. I like making people laugh.
Yep.
Is that where it comes from for you? Do you like making people laugh, or is it just there's something in your brain and you have to just get it out?
It's kind of both because, you know, I most likely have ADHD, and it's like when people laugh, it's like, oh, I'm funny, I should keep doing this. So I like it when people laugh with me, not at me. But yeah.
Do you think it's going to get a little bit harder?
Definitely.
To monetize it. So if it's like, hey, let's write out bits. You can, you know.
Yeah, you know, most of the comedy stuff I say is based on inappropriate stuff.
I know. Well, that's the problem is like, as a 12, by the time this airs 13-year-old, you're not appropriate for your own age group.
I know. And that's what sucks because anything appropriate for my age group doesn't find funny because the more inappropriate stuff is the more funny stuff, like haha, butts, farts. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but you don't. That's like the lowest common denominator of comedy. And I don't feel like that's necessarily where you always come from.
You act as if kids will laugh at like, taxes, right?
I don't think they will. That's why I think it's funny because I have a 13-year-old daughter who actually has adult humor. So it's like, where in the world do I mesh that in content creation and also supporting what you want to do and are really good at? So I'm in this weird space. That's why I feel like commentary videos where you get to comment on videos and you can be yourself.
It's going to be even worse.
Like, why? Why is that going to be worse?
I don't know, because if like a funny video comes up and I don't have anything funny to say,
then we just edit that one out. So I think those are okay because then it gets you out of doing a bit that's too out of your age group. Does that make sense?
All the bits that I want to do are too out of my age group.
Well, let's just start doing them then. Honestly, let's just do them and just get into the practice. Nobody has to air it. I don't have to publish it. We don't have to put it anywhere. But I think that like exactly what Kendahl was doing, she was already making YouTube videos. She was already doing all those things. And I feel like you have to flip from being a consumer to being a creator and use the time that you spend flipping through TikTok or YouTube and switch to creating them.
But what if I don't want to do reaction videos? I kind of just want to do like straight acting, like shows and stuff. Most people from like TikTok and stuff that want to be actual actors don't end up being actual actors because like, oh, I'm not getting interviews from this, or I'm not getting roles even though I'm auditioning a billion times. And it's like, oh, but I'm making money from this thing, so I'll just keep doing this other thing.
So you're fine with
Auditioning, yeah.
just auditioning again and going to that. Okay.
Because most of the things are just recorded auditions, and then if you get a call back, you go on a call and audition with them, and then you can fly out and audition in person.
Sometimes you can fly out. Sometimes they say you have to be there. I mean, even now I still get auditions from LA.
Why haven't
And they're like, you need to be here now.
Why haven't you been telling me?
Because we can't do it. Like, I can't.
Like, what? For what?
I don't know, honey. I don't even click on them anymore. I stopped getting all those because it was too much. We weren't there. You have to be there.
That means I'm awesome. That means I'm so cool because I did that.
But that's why I think that we should create our own content, like write our own stuff for you to act in.
I know, but local stuff?
No,
I don't want to do YouTube. That's not something I'm interested in.
But what if I'm casting you for something on YouTube? Like, I'm your casting director. We'll figure it out. You want to close this one out? Thank you, everybody, for joining us. How would I do it?
Thank you, everybody, for joining me on the YouTube channel with my daughter, Sophia. Thank you so much, and remember to like and subscribe on the producer Rachel channel.
Ew, that's inappropriate.
It is? It is?
Sticking your tongue out?
No.
Now I have to explain that. Bye, everybody.
Wait, what?